Hello and welcome to April 11th, 2025's ABLN conversation. Uh, Glenn is out today and I'll be driving the bus today. Welcome to everyone. So we got somewhat of a packed agenda. So we're going to go over a few updates from our office. Then we're going to pass the screen to Communication Service for the Deaf Incorporated, and then we'll have some Q&A. Quick update on the BEAD program. As of now, round two of the BEAD bidding process is over, and we are anticipating starting round three the next week. And so we have some anticipated dates, but we will allow that. We'll make an official announcement beforehand, of course. We're gonna let me mute this mic for a second.
I made a note here.
So we anticipate publicly releasing a list of statewide preliminary locations sometime in June. We'll make an official announcement in that regard. We're going to submit a final proposal. Our target date is Friday, July 4th. Again, that's 3 months ahead of schedule. Our mandated date for our final proposal, based on our award date of our volume 2, was set at October 4th. A couple of national updates we want to hit on, but yeah. So the NTIA has their Senate nomination of Ariel Roth, the new director of the state agency of this federal agency, has passed through the State Commerce Committee. And we had some local headlines coming out of Jefferson County with their working group. You can check both those articles out on Broadband Breakfast and the Jefferson Pine Bluff commercial in our show notes. So updates from me, digital opportunity manager. We're finalizing some updates, the planned updates that you guys should have heard about earlier this year. We're narrowing our scope, and so we have to make official updates to our consolidated budget form and our digital skills and opportunity plan to reflect those. And we are working through the official submission process to reflect our narrow scope. And another thing, with these programs that are affiliated with the capacity program, we set an internal goal of having these programs launched by August 30th. And in an effort to just not say the same thing over and over again. Yes. Can you please mute your mics? In an effort to not say the same things over and over again, this is our internal
Okay, let me hold on. I need
having these placed
myself. Hold on.
By August 30th. But with that in mind, having these programs launched later this year, we want to start targeting more robust engagement of our county committees to have these groups, these local coalitions ready for these programs that are going to launch, the first of their kind. And so we think having the committees ready at the local level to help nurture and grow these interventions will probably be the best way to make a sustainable impact. And so we're going to be reaching out in the next coming weeks to specifically county committee leaders to get a bearing on where you guys are at and come with some more targeted conversations and potential interventions, specifically for these groups of important stakeholders at the local level. And so I wanted to pass this over to Cameron from the Communication Service for the Deaf. This group has won a competitive award from the NTIA, and they have a large project and they have a footprint within the state of Arkansas. So we're gonna give them the mic to let them know, to let us know how they plan to roll these out here and to learn more about them as an organization that is not located in the state. So Cameron, I wanted to give you the mic. I'm gonna stop sharing now.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for having us today. I'm really excited about the work we're going to do here. So I have my colleague here, Greg Pollock. I'm Cameron. My last name is Pavazis. And as I mentioned, we are so thrilled to be talking about the work we're doing for the deaf and hard of hearing community. So I'm going to go ahead and give the mic to Greg, and I'm going to share my screen.
Wow.
Hello, everybody. I wanted to check to make sure the interpreter can see me. Great. As Cam mentioned, my name is Greg. My last name is Pollock, and I have been with CSD for the last 3 years. Prior to my role, I was a communication officer for PNC. It was a financial service. Some of you may be familiar with them. It is the 5th largest bank within the United States. I am so excited to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about this grant program and why we are doing it. So first, NTIA recommended Communication Services for the Deaf for Digital Equity Grant. The primary reason why we pursued this grant is because we want to ensure that deaf and hard of hearing people are not left out of the digital equity work that is happening across the United States. Deaf and hard of hearing people are one of the largest underserved communities within the United States. So Communication Services for the Deaf, we have for the last 50 years advocated for the rights for communication equity for deaf and hard of hearing people. First, I want to make sure that everybody can see the PowerPoint.
Hey, Greg, it looks very small. I don't know if it's zoomed out or what. It looks on my screen at least. I don't know if we can confirm in the chat if it appears that way for everyone, but it looks very small.
Okay, I'll ask Cam to reshare it.
Yeah,
Is
that looks
that
good.
better? Yeah, it looks better on my side. Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Communication Services for the Deaf, we were founded in the early 1960s. We are actually turning 50 years old this year. We started as the nation's leading technical solutions provider for deaf and hard of hearing people. Before cell phones, before tablets, any other technology, we only had landline phones. And at the time, deaf and hard of hearing people couldn't make phone calls. And we needed to rely on our parents, neighbors, friends, families to make calls on behalf of deaf and hard of hearing people. Until later, the TTY was invented in the 1960s. And for those of you who don't know what the TTY is, sorry about that, I froze there for a second. The TTY is a keyboard basically, which allows folks to put the landline phone into the keyboard, and it uses audio cues to identify specific letters, beeps, bleeps, different meanings that would translate those letters, and those letters would be sent over to another person who had that same keyboard. And those two people on the other ends of the keyboard communicate with each other. Now, the challenge there is for me as a deaf person, if I wanted to call you, you also needed to have a TTY, another keyboard. So CSD was founded to solve that problem. And the person who started this company started in South Dakota, and he decided to hire hearing people to have a TTY and receive calls from deaf people. And then the hearing person on the other end of the line would sit in front of the keyboard and then go ahead and create the call to the deaf person. So the deaf person could type what they wanted that hearing person on the other end of the line to tell the hearing person. And that's how deaf people created calls. Now, in the 1990s, CSD became the largest both producer of TTYs and also became the largest provider of the TTY and
Excuse me,
relay
Greg.
service. Yes?
Hi. Uh, are you meant to be stuck on the same slide, or are you is your slideshow supposed to be moving? We
Yes. I'm just giving you some background on
okay,
CSD
okay.
first, but thank you so much for checking in. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that you had some context on what CSD was before we started explaining what we're doing. So CSD in the 1990s, we became the largest relay service provider. Now, what that means is any business, organization, company, or any individual that wanted to contact a deaf person, they could do so through relay service, where CSD, we would provide hearing people who are receiving these calls, and then we would have them make calls for deaf people. And that's how CSD was formed. So as I mentioned, CSD became the largest provider, and relay service became the main model for how deaf and hard of hearing people communicated with hearing folks. Now, in the early 2000s, video became very popular. So CSD shifted to what's called video relay service. And that's where we hired interpreters to sit in front of a camera and receive video calls from deaf people. And then they would translate the call for the deaf person. So deaf people like me could reach out to the IRS, Department of Revenue, Public Utilities Commission. Now, obviously, all of this requires technology. So, for people who are deaf and hard of hearing to be able to communicate with you all, we need to make sure that deaf people had the technology available to be able to have those conversations. So we worked closely with the Federal Communications Commission to make relay service a reality for almost 1.5 million deaf and hard of hearing people around the country. We were the main provider of relay service. Then we decided that we wanted to address one pain point. Every conversation would require a third party in the middle. whether it would be a captionist, an interpreter. So we wanted to solve that problem by eliminating the third party in the middle. So now it's been about 6 years. So 6 years ago, Zoom became very popular. Google Meets became popular, FaceTime. And with all of this technology, created the opportunity to make more of a direct experience for people. So I can contact any organization or agency myself without having to rely on a third party. Now, what that meant was we wanted to encourage businesses and agencies to hire deaf and hard of hearing people within their contact centers, so that when a deaf person calls, the organization or agency can receive that call directly and directly interact with that deaf and hard of hearing person without that third party individual in the middle. So our proposal to NTIA was to develop a digital equity program that is available to the deaf and hard of hearing people across the United States through the use of this type of program, where every digital equity grant program allows for direct communication with deaf and hard of hearing people so that they could design intake programs and equipment disbursement programs that allows for deaf people to request technology and also digital equity program services directly in ASL, instead of utilizing that third party to facilitate that conversation. Now, we do equipment disbursement for the state of California right now. We are their largest distributor of equipment for all people with disabilities, not only deaf and hard of hearing people. And it's called California Connect. You can look it up if you'd like to see that program. We have created the most accessible intake process and also customer management service as well through direct video calling. Direct video calling allows people to send in requests, engage with representatives, utilizing direct video calling. We want to take this model and apply it to the NTIA Digital Equity Grant Program so that the state and different organizations can partner with us to create the most efficient intake process. And this would serve both deaf and hearing people. Now, how this works is, some of you may be wondering. So we had the TTY, as I mentioned before. You used to have to have your own phone number from its own landline phone. Now that's not true anymore, because now we have a relationship with the Federal Communications Commission, and they have a really giant database of all deaf and hard of hearing people across the states. Now, me, as a deaf person, I have a social security number. I also have a phone number. Now, anytime I make a call, the FCC knows. So anytime a company or agency does not have a deaf person on the other end of the line, the FCC will automatically route me to a public contact center where the interpreter or a captioner would be ready to receive that call. Now, it doesn't matter what phone number I'm calling, but some agencies and companies might say, well, wait a minute. I want the deaf person to call me directly. I don't want them to go through a relay service center. So in that case, they could partner with CSD. And we would register their phone number within the FCC. And once we register that phone number, the deaf person can call that phone number for, let me give you an example, like 1-800-Comcast. So if a hearing person were to call 1-800-Comcast, they would get that IVR audio. Press 1 for billing, press 2 for plans, press 3 for tech support. So the hearing person would hear that. Now, the deaf person, if they call Comcast today, utilizing the same phone number, it would recognize that this is a deaf person calling. And then you would see on the screen a signing version of the IVR. So it would say, press 1 for billing, press 2 for support, press 3 for tech support. Does that make sense? All of that would be done in sign language. And the deaf person would see a signing person on the screen, somebody saying, hello, how can I help you? Ready to help. So that's a really nice feature to have. And you'll be able to recognize the difference between a hearing caller and a deaf person. And it will help that person navigate to the right person. But we would connect all that information within the FCC database. It creates an authentic, equitable experience. And also it makes sure that the deaf person is interacting with someone who truly understands how to interact with deaf people, instead of a hearing representative who may not be familiar with an interpreter. They may not be sure how to interact with deaf people. And that sometimes makes for an awkward experience. So as I mentioned, this is functional equivalence, this experience, which is why we've developed this grant proposal that focuses on the direct experience for deaf and hard of hearing people. Now, I want to give deaf and hard of hearing people the tools that they need to be able to navigate life, utilizing the internet, using gadgets, tablets, different things that they may need in order to live their daily lives. Hearing people all over have designed a system that is not accessible for deaf and hard of hearing people. And the nice thing about DVC, direct video calling, is that I could go to a library and use DVC to be able to get internet access and then access the service there. If I don't have internet at home, for example, then I'm stuck. I can't call to receive services from this equipment disbursement program. We want to develop a accessible and equivalent experience for deaf people, just as what hearing people have available to them. So now today, I mentioned deaf and hard of hearing people, their primary means of communication currently is through a video phone. 94 to 96% would prefer to call directly instead of utilizing any other method. And the reason for that is because deaf and hard of hearing people, their primary language is American Sign Language. Now, most deaf and hard of hearing people do not prefer reading and writing in English. And the reason for that is because most of us are born to hearing parents. 90% of us are. So when we were born to hearing parents, they don't know sign language. So when we're born, we need to be able to learn language. But at the same time, if our parents don't know how to teach us that language, then as a baby, we automatically would fall behind. So when parents are trying to learn the language, I am still growing up as a person. So all of my language development needs to happen when you're young. And because of that gap, on average, the deaf and hard of hearing person today, they read at a fourth or fifth grade reading level. And the majority read at a seventh or eighth reading level. Which is why direct video calling is so vital for deaf and hard of hearing people. Being able to access services through sign language. Also, on top of that, it creates an equivalent experience. I don't have to wait for a sign language interpreter to jump on my screen. I don't have to wait as long. And I can engage with a trained representative who is ready to assist me. So altogether, it makes for a faster experience. So that is, within a nutshell, what direct video calling is and how it relates to our equipment disbursement program that we're doing for the state of California. Now, our grant proposal focuses on creating accessible programs that allows for deaf and hard of hearing people to easily access the resources they need, whilst at the same time providing the equipment disbursement program that's available for all folks with disabilities, even though our grant does focus on deaf and hard of hearing people and access for them. So I said a lot, so I will pass it over to Cam to explain a little bit more about some of the things that are important to consider when it comes to deaf and hard of hearing people and their experiences. Great, thank you, Greg. Just freezing here a bit. I just want to make sure it's better now. Okay, great. It seems like the slide that was moving was causing the freezing. Okay. There's so many things to consider to providing services to the deaf and hard of hearing community when it comes to equal access to communication. So these are some things that I want you to consider about the deaf and hard of hearing community. 48 million Americans that are deaf and hard of hearing themselves. And that is the community we serve here at Communication Services for the Deaf. So when an individual identifies as deaf and hard of hearing, does that mean they're the same as every other deaf person? No, their needs are different and they vary. And that's very common within the deaf and hard of hearing community. And it makes sense. They want direct communication. Just as we have different spoken languages, English, French, we would prefer to have direct communication within our language. The National Association for the Deaf, we did a survey with them, and it showed that 95% of deaf and hard of hearing individuals, if they see that a company has the ability to have direct communication in ASL, they usually will use that company for their services. We did a lot of work with different organizations to provide direct video calling, and these organizations have noticed large a large customer base, and they are very loyal to that service. And 300% have experienced an increase as well. Also, deaf people are able to access a connection with a trained representative who is trained within that organization instead of relying on text. Sometimes that is a different language for the deaf person, so it's really hard for them to interact using text or chat because they're utilizing English. As you see here in the fourth one here, other organizations have 220 calls per month for deaf and hard of hearing people. And that can be very, very frustrating with relay service. But once they set up direct video calling and they had that, they had 2,738 calls per month. So there was a huge volume increase there. And it also decreased the time on the phone. So it was super beneficial and it saved them millions of dollars per year. Now, the cool thing about direct video calling is there are two ways that you can use it. Now, for hearing people, you can call directly using speaking English, or you can use the text chat. Now, we want that to be the same for the deaf and hard of hearing community. So they can utilize their video phone to interact, or they can go online and use a widget on the website. And that widget, when they click on that, they would be able to connect with that same deaf representative. So they have two ways in order to do this, which is so important because the equipment disbursement that we're using for our program, we want to make sure that they have the appropriate equipment to utilize both the web and also phone support as well. Now, within this picture, it shows a deaf person can use the web and also phone support, and it would connect them all the way up to an IVR. And the IVR is very similar to what Greg mentioned, what hearing people hear. Press 1 for a representative, press 2 for billing. That would put them into a queue, and they would wait for a deaf representative. And that's what direct video calling looks like, DVC. But I just wanted to make sure I took a moment to show you the difference between video relay service and direct video calling and show you the impact it can have on customers and the company itself. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you the comparison of video relay service and direct video calling. If you do notice the video freezing, please do let me know. This is Cam here. I did see that it froze a little bit. Was that clear to you all, or is it still freezing?
It is freezing.
Oh, okay. Let me just go ahead and go to the next slide, and I will expand on the comparison that was made in this video.
Okay.
Okay, so let me expand on the video, and then I'll touch on this slide. So within the video, it went through a comparison. I will actually send this to you all after this presentation. They shared the frustration that they experience with video relay service. They notice when they call, the interpreter has to introduce themselves when they connect to a hearing representative and say, "Hi, this is the interpreter, and my interpreter number is this." Oftentimes that can create confusion for a lot of hearing individuals who are not used to utilizing relay services. Also, when they call a deaf person, they don't necessarily own that call. So sometimes interpreters have to expand on some things, they have to interrupt, they have to repeat themselves. Now, with direct video calling, you have instant connection with that deaf person. This deaf trained representative understands this person completely as a deaf person, and that means reducing time with calls. So I would be happy to show this video after this presentation. Now, this slide here, I want to show who has already taken on direct video calling. You'll see some stars here. These are organizations who have a direct partnership with us. We are so proud to share the work that we've done with 988, the Suicide Lifeline. And we've had this partnership established for 9 months, and they've received over 20,000 calls. In 2024, they've received 30,000 calls. So I really want to say that 988 was able to support 30,000 lives within the deaf and hard of hearing community. We work with a lot of different state agencies as well to support their COVID hotlines, also mental health, human services, so many different state agencies that we work with, and we are continuing to grow with California Connect, just as Greg mentioned earlier. And then we also notice some names here on the bottom. We have Google, Comcast, as we mentioned, Xfinity. So anytime a deaf person reaches out to these companies for support, they can call using their video phone or the internet, and they can connect with a deaf trained representative. Okay, well, that is in a synopsis of the work that we do here at CSD. I want to thank you for your time today and really talking about the important work that we do for digital equity within the deaf community. This is our contact information. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, if you want any more information, please do contact us. Both of us are on LinkedIn. We are always happy to connect with you more. We do have a lot of updates often, especially if we gain a new partnership. Please do reach out. I want to give a few minutes for you to take a picture of our information here, and then I will stop sharing my screen. Thank you.
Hey guys, we had a couple questions in the chat. Hunter was first. How can Arkansas nonprofits and community-based organizations support your work in Arkansas through, I'm assuming, this grant? I think Greg had an answer. Josh, if you want to expound on that, or
This is Greg. I will go ahead and summarize what I said in the chat. So, long story short, to be as direct as I can, most programs are not designed to be accessible for deaf and hard of hearing people. Most programs just depend on deaf and hard of hearing people to figure it out on how to reach out to them. And that level of dependence on deaf and hard of hearing people creates work for them. It's not fair to deaf and hard of hearing people. Now, our goal is to see a world where every organization, agency, program, nonprofit is able to provide deaf and hard of hearing people with direct ways of connection with their organizations through people who know how to sign. When I call the IRS, I want to talk to somebody who signs. I don't want to give a third-party person my social security number. When I got into this digital equity program, receiving the equipment, I want to make sure that I talk with someone who knows sign language. And this person is actually trained by the organization to interact with me and provide me the tools that I need. Our goal is to make sure that every program is accessible. So when NTIA releases this grant, when the NTIA produced this grant, they did not include in the requirements that these programs be made accessible to deaf and hard of hearing people. So because of that, we sent a request for grant funding to help these programs become more accessible for deaf and hard of hearing people.
So I got a
We
follow-up
also want
question.
every state to make their agency and service accessible as well. And that is a huge drive behind the reason why we're doing what we're doing. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. How will the people? How will the people of Arkansas be able to benefit from this program? For example, will you work through our School for the Deaf and Blind? Do you have other partner agencies that you typically partner with that you're going to utilize in Arkansas? Could you speak to that point a little bit?
Cam? This is Cam. Thank you so much for asking. I'm happy to take that question. Yes, we will be doing a lot of work with this program to support your area. Our program includes equipment disbursement, as we mentioned, and this equipment will include the necessary tools that deaf and hard of hearing people, plus other folks who have disabilities, to be able to communicate. And we will be providing digital literacy training to make sure that deaf and hard of hearing people have the appropriate tools to safely use the internet, to safely use apps on their devices, to make sure that they feel empowered to use their equipment. We also provide customer support for people who are registered with our program. They can reach out to us and ask questions in ASL. We also will be providing them resources to our partner organizations. For example, if a deaf person needs therapy services, we will support them to connect with National Deaf Therapy, which is our partner, to get services in ASL. We also will be working with state agencies to provide interpreting services as well. So if a deaf person shows up in person, they need an interpreter right away, they're able to connect with an interpreter and have that communication access. We are more than happy to connect with other organizations, for example, the School for the Deaf, or if you know any other organization that would like to connect with us to be a part of this work, we are happy to work with you. This is Greg. One thing I do want to add to what Cam just mentioned is the School for the Deaf and other partner organizations are great tools for helping us reach out to and do outreach to other organizations where we can find deaf and hard of hearing people that live in Arkansas. We also have a relationship with Arkansas Association for the Deaf. We have a lot of connections within the state. CSD has a very long history of being the largest provider of relay services. So we do know, and we have the most significant network within the deaf and hard of hearing community. And because of that, we are able to connect and reach out to different organizations. So that being said, I want to take a step back here a little bit and think about how hearing people navigate digital equity and how hearing people would benefit from this program. and what these touch points look like. How will they be able to communicate with us? So our goal is to be able to replicate this model that's been set. Anything that a hearing person does today, we want the deaf person to be able to do it too. So we want it to be a mirroring system. I hope that helps clarify things a little bit.
Yeah, yes, it does. Yeah, thank you guys for participating. This is an issue that, well, not an issue, I'm sorry. The deaf and hard of hearing is something that I, tackle within my household. My wife is a child of a deaf adult. So, my in-laws are both deaf. And so I appreciate the work you guys are doing within our state. And best of luck. I don't think we have any additional questions in the chat box. So let's hold on for maybe a minute or two, and then we can adjourn for today.
This is Cameron. Great. Thank you so much for having us today. It was really nice to present to you all and answer your questions. We really hope to be able to support the full state of Arkansas more going forward.
Okay. So that is
This
it for
is
today.
Craig. Thank you so much. I
Oh.
really appreciate your time.
You guys are welcome. Looking forward to working with you in the future. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.